Hi everyone, it's Jenny here from The Bear and the Fox. I'm back today with another roundup of our favourite picture books, and today I want to talk to you about Christmas. I have a whopping 50 book recommendations to get through with you today, so without further ado, let's get cracking. I'm starting with a classic. It's The Jolly Christmas Postman. It's full of little pockets. I've got real letters inside them that your kids can take out and you can read. A Letter for Bear is another book about delivering letters at Christmas time. Poor old Bear always delivers the letters and never gets any until the day he decides to throw a Christmas party and everything changes. Next up, I have a selection of funny Christmas books for you, and the first one is called Shh. And it's all about Santa making lots of noise as he tries to deliver the presents, and everyone keeps telling him to shh, be quiet so that he doesn't wake the children. Alien's Crazy Christmas is about an alien who finds out about Christmas while he is down visiting Earth and then tries to introduce Christmas back on his own planet, and it all goes horribly wrong but in a very funny way. Sticking with the theme of aliens, for anyone who is a fan of the book Aliens Love Underpants, we have Aliens Love Panta Claus, except in this book, instead of stealing underpants, since it's Christmas, they're giving underpants away. What's Christmas features an elf that is stranded at the South Pole after falling from Santa's sleigh. He is helped by a couple of penguins who have never heard about Christmas before. So he teaches them all about Christmas and they help him to be rescued. The next couple of books are all about saving Christmas. The first one is called Russell's Christmas Magic. It features Russell the sheep who helps to save Christmas after Santa crash lands his sleigh. And the other one is called Sammy Claus the Christmas Cat. This one is actually brand new, just out this year, and it features Sammy the cat who helps to save Christmas after two robbers try to steal all the presents from the back of Santa's sleigh while he's down a chimney. Another classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I don't think this needs much introduction, and I hear there's a new Grinch Christmas movie out this year too. For something a little bit different, we have The Day Santa Stopped Believing in Harold. I love this topsy-turvy story where Santa isn't sure whether Harold is real anymore because his writing is way too neat, and he thinks that it's actually Harold's parents trying to make him believe in Harold so that they can get some extra Christmas presents, and it's really funny. And I also really like that it features a mixed-race family. Sticking with Santa, we have Harvey Slumfenberger's Christmas Present, and just as Santa has finished his rounds for the night and tucked up his knackered reindeer in bed, he discovers that Harvey's present is still at the bottom of his sack. So he sets out by lots of different modes of transport to try and deliver Harvey's present in time. Next up, we have a book that is actually two books in one. We have got the German edition of this. In English, the two books are called Father Christmas and Father Christmas Goes on Holiday, and they are by Raymond Briggs, who is maybe more well known for his famous book The Snowman, but his Father Christmas stories are equally charming. The Littlest Elf is a heartwarming wee story that takes place behind the scenes at Santa's workshop. The Littlest Elf is too little to make toys, he's too little to bake cookies, he's too little to help Santa, so he tries to find something that he can do to help with Christmas. Next up, I have a couple of books featuring beloved characters from picture book series that all have a Christmas edition. Starting with Mog's Christmas, where Mog gets spooked by a Christmas tree and ends up on the roof of the house. Then we have Maisie's Merry Christmas. Now, Maisie is very famous in Scotland because she lives in Edinburgh, and Maisie's Merry Christmas is all about how she celebrates Christmas, including taking part in a pantomime, which is a well-known British Christmas tradition. Then we have Olivia Helps with Christmas, which is all about the well-known little pig and the mischief and mayhem that she gets into, and Christmas is no exception. And finally, there is Elma at Christmas and how he and the other elephants prepare for a visit from Papa Red. Moving on, the next few books are all about preparing for Christmas, starting with Pick a Pine Tree, which is, as the name implies, all about going out and choosing a pine tree to take back home and trimming it and decorating it for Christmas. Then we have How Many Sleeps Till Christmas, featuring Daddy Grizzle and Little Pip. And I think this is something that all parents can relate to. How many times do we have to hear this in the run up to Christmas? And then we have Bear Stays Up for Christmas, featuring Bear and his friends. Now, Bear usually sleeps through Christmas because bears hibernate, but in this story, his friends persuade him to stay up and they all celebrate Christmas together. Next is another book that we have in German, but there is an English edition of this. It's called Merry Christmas, Little Witch, and it features Lizzie the Little Witch getting ready for Christmas. And it's quite a fun book because each page has a fold out that kids can open to reveal the next part of the story. Another part of getting ready for Christmas is, of course, going Christmas shopping. But in this Christmas shopping trip, poor little Noah loses his favourite toy, Oliver Elephant. What a disaster! Will he get him back? Well, it's a Christmas story, so I think you can guess what happens in the end, but it is an absolutely lovely book to read. The next couple of books are all about sharing and the spirit of Christmas, starting with Christmas Eve at the Mellops. In this story, Mr. Mellop and his 3 sons all decide to surprise each other with Christmas trees, so they end up with a bit of a surplus, and the rest of the story is about how they try to find someone to share their trees and to share the joy of Christmas with. Sticking with the theme of Christmas trees, we have Mr. Willoughby's Christmas tree, and in it Mr. Willoughby gets his tree, but it's too tall, so he chops off the top and gives it away, and then the next person chops off the top because it's still too tall for them, and so on and so on and so on, until at the end of the story lots of people have benefited from the one tree. And in Christmas on Exeter Street, it's a house and not a tree that is being shared. Lots of people keep arriving, family, friends, neighbours, because they have nowhere else to stay, and they're all allowed to stay in the house on Exeter Street until it's completely full from top to bottom, and there's even a baby sleeping in the Christmas sink. And finally, on the theme of sharing, we have this little book, The Empty Stocking, featuring sisters Sam and Charlie. Charlie has been very naughty, so when Santa comes to fill their stocking, he leaves Charlie's stocking empty. Or so he thinks, because Sam and Charlie are twins and he leaves the wrong stocking empty. So will Charlie do the right thing when she realises what has happened? Moving on, I've got a whole lot of books focused on celebrating Christmas, starting with The Best Christmas Present Ever, where friends Bear and Squirrel try to find the best Christmas present for each other, and you'll never guess what it is. There's a little clue here. Next is another book that we have in German, but there is again an English edition of this. It's called Findus at Christmas, and it's from the popular Swedish series Patterson and Findus. Patterson is the old man and Findus is his cat, and this particular book is all about how they celebrate Christmas together. Christmas for Greta and Gracie is about 2 sisters, Greta, who talks non-stop and is also very bossy, and poor Gracie, who never gets a word in edgeways, until something amazing happens to Gracie at Christmas, which finally leaves Greta speechless. A Christmas for Bear is another story about 2 friends celebrating Christmas. This time it's a bear and a mouse, and Bear thinks that Christmas is all about eating pickles and reciting boring poems, and Mouse just doesn't believe him. She thinks that Bear is just teasing and actually has some presents hidden somewhere. But does he or doesn't he? You'll have to read the book to find out. A Homemade Together Christmas is a really charming story featuring little Luca the pig, and in this story Luca's mom decides they're going to have a homemade Christmas where everybody has to make their Christmas presents, but poor Luca's not very good at anything. He's no good at baking, he's no good at crafting, but at the end he comes up with a really special idea. He creates a jar full of 365 ideas that the family can do together in the next year. And when I read this story to my boys last year, they were so excited by this idea that they wanted to make a jar all of their own. The Church Mice at Christmas features some little mice who want to have a Christmas party, but they have no money, so they need to put their party plans on hold until they manage to thwart a robbery, and they end up being rewarded and they can have their Christmas party after all. Another book that we have in German, and in fact another book that is a translation from a Swedish children's book, There is also an English edition. It's called Christmas in Noisy Village, and it features a group of children that grow up in rural Sweden, and it's just about how they spend Christmas together. They bake cookies and they dance around the Christmas tree. This is my absolute favourite Christmas book of all times. Astrid Lindgren is hugely popular in Germany, and I grew up with the stories of the children in Noisy Village, or the children of Bullabü as the books are known in German. And as you can see, the spine has been repaired because this is in fact my edition from when I was a little girl. So it's a good couple of decades old, and no matter what other picture books we manage to read at Christmas time, this always has to be one of them. Next up we have Tales from Christmas Wood, which is actually 6 stories in one book. Each story is 4 pages long, so it's the perfect length to dip in and out of with younger kids, and it features various little animals that live in the woods and their adventures during Christmas time. Next up, I have a couple of books that are a little bit more thought-provoking and contemplative than some of the others, starting with Christmas Farm, which is about a lady who decides to start a Christmas tree farm, and the little boy, who's 5 years old, who lives next door, who helps her with this, and they become friends, and it's all about the life cycle of Christmas trees and the Christmas tree farm and friendship. Next we have Grandpa Christmas, another book that is new out this year, and the majority of this book is not actually about Christmas itself. It features Mia and her family, and they read a letter from Mia's grandpa every year at Christmas. Grandpa is no longer with them, and in the letter Grandpa remembers how he and Mia used to plant seeds together when she was little, and he's very worried about the state of the planet and the environment and how things are going, and it's an appeal to Mia to take care of the world and the planet. And so they read this every year at Christmas, and they think of him as Grandpa Christmas, and it's just a really beautiful book. Then we have The Christmas Eve Tree, another beautifully illustrated book. It's about a little tree who gets cast aside because it's too small and too crooked, and it ends up with this little boy who doesn't mind that the tree is not as tall or as straight as the other trees. And this little boy is in fact homeless. He lives under a bridge in a cardboard box, but the tree brings a little bit of Christmas cheer to his otherwise quite sad and lonely Christmas. So it's quite a sad book, but it's also a very beautiful book, and it's a great talking point to talk about how not all children are lucky to have a roof over their heads and get lots of lovely Christmas presents at Christmas time. Next up we have Tom's Christmas Fish, which is set in Prague, and it's tradition there to eat a fish for Christmas. So in the story, Tom and his grandfather go to the market to buy their Christmas fish, and it's still alive when they take it home, and it lives in the bathtub for a while, and then Tom can't face the idea of actually killing and eating it at Christmas. So it's a very heartwarming story about trying to decide what is the right thing to do, and it's also a great book if you want to learn about Christmas cultures in other countries. Moving on, I have a few books about Christmas miracles and Christmas magic, starting with The Best Christmas Present in the World. This is actually about a true Christmas miracle that happened in 1914 during the war, when the two sides called a truce and played a game of football together at Christmas time. Oscar and the Eight Blessings is a story that is set in 1938, where the 7th day of Hanukkah and Christmas Eve fell on the same day. It features Oscar, who is a Jewish refugee fleeing Nazi Europe, and he arrives on a boat in New York City, and he needs to try and find his way to his aunt's house. And the story is about the people that he meets on the way and the kindness that they show to Oscar. Red and Lulu is the story of two cardinals who live in an evergreen tree, and one day the tree is cut down with Lulu still in it, and the tree is taken away to the big city to stand in the city as a Christmas tree. So Red sets out to follow Lulu and to try and be reunited with her, and it's a Christmas miracle story, so maybe you can guess what happens at the end. It's truly beautiful and the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. The Christmas Miracle of Jonathan Toomey is another heartwarming story, and in this story a gloomy old woodcarver slowly has his heart thawed by a woman and her young son, and it turns out that he has a very good reason for being gloomy. Moving on from miracles to magic, we have The Polar Express, another book that probably doesn't need much introduction after it was turned into a much loved movie. It features a little boy who goes on the Polar Express to the North Pole and ends up seeing Santa and all the magic that happens around that. Ollie's Christmas Reindeer is a beautifully illustrated story about a little girl who follows the sound of a bell and makes a new friend, and they go on a magical adventure together. Last Stop on the Reindeer Express is another gorgeously illustrated Christmas book. It features a little girl called Mia who misses her dad, who's very far away, and then she discovers a mysterious postbox and goes on a magical journey to go and see her dad. One Christmas Wish is a rather long book. It's a bit longer than a picture book, but a bit shorter than a chapter book, but it's truly beautiful and magical. It features a little boy who is bored because his parents have gone out and his babysitter's fallen asleep. So he makes a wish and all the decorations on the Christmas tree come alive, and it's about the magical adventure that follows. We're almost at the end. Next I have The 12 Days of Christmas. There are countless book versions of this well-known Christmas carol, and I particularly love the illustrations in this one by Jane Ray. Next up we have Babushka, another story from a different culture, this time Russia. Babushka is the traditional gift bringer for children at Christmas in Russia. And this book tells the folk tale behind the character of Babushka. I could not find this particular book in print anymore, but if you search for Babushka, then you will find other picture book versions of this folk tale that are still in print and are still available. Next up we have The Nativity, the story of the baby Jesus, which is of course a child-friendly retelling of the original Bible story, and I felt that we couldn't really have a roundup of Christmas picture books without mentioning this one very special Christmas story. And last but not least, we have The Night Before Christmas, also known as A Visit from St. Nicholas, after Clement Seymour's very famous poem, which has heavily influenced how we all picture Santa Claus today. Again, there are lots of versions of this poem in print, and I particularly like the illustrations in this one, and we always read this on Christmas Eve, of course. And that's it, a whistle-stop tour of our top 50 favourite Christmas picture books. I'd love to know what your favourites are. Maybe it's one we haven't included, so please feel free to leave a comment. I'm going to do some more Christmas videos in December, so if there are any of these books that you would like a closer look at, maybe a sneak peek inside or a more detailed review, then do let me know that in the comments as well. I'll also be back soon with another video where I will share some tips on how to put together an Advent book calendar, so watch this space for that. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please do like this video and subscribe to our channel. I will see you next time. Happy reading. Bye!